Good morning. It is so great to see all of you beautiful people on this beautiful April morning. Welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Grand Traverse and to this April 6th service. I'm Beth Strawbridge, and I serve this congregation as a member of the Sunday Services Committee. You are in a place and a space, if you are viewing from the live stream, where you are all truly welcome, no matter your background, identity, or age. We especially extend our love to families with young children. As spiritual people, we practice the art of staying curious, even when things can at times feel a little uncomfortable. So let us remember that as a community, we are building a culture of inclusion and welcome, and this includes the joyful sounds from our little ones. If you are visiting or are new to our congregation, and if you are comfortable doing so, we invite you to stand and introduce yourselves. Chris will bring a microphone so that you can be heard by those streaming our service and those here at home. Is there anybody who would like to introduce themselves this morning?
Hi. I've been here before, but it's been a while. I'm Liz Paxson, and I'm an artist and a poet, and I live in Traverse City area.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Chris. You probably know my husband Taylor already, but I'm a scientist at large, and I work in education.
Welcome to you both.
Hi, I'm Janet Neiman. This is my first time here, and sorry. My name is Janet Neiman, first time here, live out here in this area, here with my daughter, Rebecca, and heard that this was a very nice, warm, welcoming community, so.
Welcome to you. Anyone else?
Over there?
My name is Angel Elsenheimer, and this is my second time here in 30 years, and I'm motivated and so grateful to be a new part of an awesome community that I live a mile away from. I can't believe I haven't been here before, so thank you for having me.
Welcome. Anyone else? Well, we invite you, those of you who introduced yourselves and those of you who were a little shy and did not, we invite you to join us in the social hour after the service for refreshments and conversation. And if you take a yellow mug that you'll find on the coffee table, we can easily identify you and be able to greet you personally. And we look forward to getting to know you. It is our practice in this community to set aside time in our service to share the joys and concerns that mark our lives. For those of you here in the sanctuary, there is a book on the table with the candles to your left where you can enter your message during the centering music. Ann Swaney will read these later in the service. To express those joys or sorrows that you may be holding quietly in your hearts, you are invited to light a candle, which you'll find on the same table at any point during the service. As we revisit the Exodus story in our service today, you are invited to reflect on how Pharaoh might be a metaphor for narcissism. What happens when our hearts are hard to the feelings and needs of others? What happens when we won't listen? We are about to enter sacred time. We make this time and this place sacred by our presence and our intention. Please silence your cell phones and center yourself as you listen to When You Believe, played by Barbara Young.
Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. I'm Reverend Alex, the senior minister here at UUCGT. I use he and him pronouns. And welcome to this service exploring the Jewish celebration of Passover, as well as revisiting the old Exodus story through a modern lens. This next weekend, as the Jewish community enters the sacred days of Passover, we reflect on the call to remember and on those who help us to remember. The author and science writer Sharon Astick writes, "The Haggadah tells us of 4 children at the Passover table: the wise, the rebellious, the simple, and the one who does not know how to ask." Much is said about the first 3, but little about the one who is silent. And yet, without the voice of the one who cannot speak, the story stands incomplete. The silent ones are not guests to be pitied or accommodated. They are essential. Their presence, their silence, and the deep remembering it calls forth is a mitzvah in of itself. The 4th child is not an afterthought. The 4th child is the presence that makes the story whole. The child who does not speak may be very young, or they may be older, like a teenager with autism, a grandparent with Alzheimer's, a stroke survivor relearning how to form their words. They may be an immigrant neighbor who does not yet know the language of community. They may be someone silenced by trauma or grief or war. Those who are the victims of indiscriminate bombings and senseless violence. They may be sitting in hospitals or nursing homes, left out of the ritual entirely. But they are not extraneous to the story. They are the story, and without them, our memory falters. Without them, our sacred gatherings are incomplete. So today we begin with reverence for every voice that speaks and every voice that does not. May we remember that silence too is holy, and may all who hunger for food, community, and dignity be welcomed to come and eat. Come and let us worship together this morning.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And as we light the chalice this morning, please join me in saying our covenant words together. You'll find those on the back of your order of service. I'm accountable for me. You're accountable for you. In community, we hold each other through joy and conflict. We openly welcome all as we respond to the needs of the world. And now, as we hear the singing bowl struck, we will enter a time of stillness.
Friends, if you would rise in body or in spirit. I don't know how many of you have been following along with the sacred self-care practices, but today's self-care practice is actually laughter as medicine. And we're going to be employing a little bit of a fun thing with this hymn. Some of you that have seen us do this before kind of know what this is all about. So with this hymn, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In, I bring a tradition that comes to you all the way from Wayland, Massachusetts, where I was an intern minister. And on the lyric of Joyful Day in this hymn, it goes, "Today will be a joyful day. We are to rise up on our tippy toes as we say joyful." And that will help us to all smile and maybe laugh a little bit. So let's try that together. Today will be a joyful day. Today will be a Joyful day. You're well practiced. We'll do this. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Open your ears and listen. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Open your ears, everyone. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Don't be afraid of some change. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
On that joyful note, good morning. All of my young friends would like to come up to the carpet this morning. See a handful of us out here. Hi. Hi, hi, hi. There's so many of us today. Hooray. Hi. Hooray. I hear a hooray. Look at all these kids. Yay. I'm so happy to see everybody this morning. How are we doing? Good. Good. Did everybody have a good spring break? I feel like some of you, I haven't seen you since spring break. How was spring break? Was it good? Was it solid? Did Jetpig have a good time? Okay, good. Oh, come on, Mom. It's okay, you're teaching Owl on Wednesday. You can bring him on Wednesday. You get a couple extra days to hang out with Jetpig. That's fine. All right, my friends. Let's talk about something a little bit serious this morning. I know, we just did this whole song about being joyful, and now we have to be serious. Has anybody ever encountered bullies in your life? Ugh, bullies. Yeah, I see some grown-ups. Absolutely. There's some bullies out there in this world. We don't like bullies. So fun thing about bullies, they happen to also be people. Most of the time. I don't know, maybe like a tree has bullied you sometime, but I think usually bullies are people, right? Yeah, sometimes the tree, you run into the tree, you feel like the tree's a bully, right? Oh, you were climbing the tree. Okay, well, were you bullying the tree in that case? I don't know. But anyway, usually bullies are people, right? And the thing about people is sometimes they have a reason that they're bullying us. And it's tricky to think about that. It's tricky to think, oh man, that person's a person and they probably have a hurt or something going on in their life. And maybe I should ask them about it. Maybe I should just walk away. And that's really, really, really hard to do, right? And sometimes bullies are just bullies and we have to just walk away. But sometimes we have to be a friend and we have to say, hey, what's going on? What's making you be a bully? What's happening with you? So that's what our story is about today, is that finding that piece of somebody that we can say, hey, I think you're being a bully because something hard's going on in your world. So this is Wally and Freya. Wally was a bully. That's what everybody said. They were sure that hurtful thoughts were all that filled his head. Oh, those poor other animals look so sad. Yeah, the owl's glasses are far too big. You're right, Ellie. Maybe, you know what? I had glasses that were way too big as a kid, too. So, Wally stole lunch every day from Bella Joe the bear, and he always hogged the crayons and refused to even share. Needless to say, when it was time for the kids to play, Wally's classmates would holler, "Wally, go away." Do you feel like that when you encounter bullies? You don't want to play with them usually, right? You say, you stay over there. I don't want to play with you. You're not being kind. During recess, kids brought pens and imagination soared. They wrote of pirates, goblins, ghouls, dragons, knights, and lords. Freya the Red Fox wrote the most captivating tales of terrifying monsters with big teeth as sharp as nails. Where do you see Wally in this picture? Yeah. He looks like he's kind of curious about what they're doing. One day, Freya's book of tales simply disappeared. It's lost and gone forever, or so the children feared. Raphael the rabbit spoke up fast to save the day. Wally took the book, he said. Quick, he went that way. Chasing after Wally, they were shocked by what they found. Pages of her book were scattered all across the ground. Freya's words were hidden under Wally's scary doodles of terrifying monsters eating eyes and guts like noodles. Gross. They all let out a gasp. What have you done? The group exclaimed. Wally ran into the forest looking quite ashamed. But Freya thought twice as she watched young Wally go and followed down the grassy path to where the oak trees grow. Wally was there, hanging his head and kicking at the dirt. Freya saw in Wally's eyes that both of them felt hurt. Your drawings are amazing, Freya genuinely said. This made Wally smile, and he slowly turned his head. Why do you take my book? She asked with kindness in her eyes. I don't know, said Wally, letting out a big, long sigh. I guess I just always wanted to be part of the fun, but you wouldn't understand. You're friends with everyone. Nobody likes me, Wally said while looking very sad. Sometimes I get so sad, and then that sadness makes me mad. He told his new friend Freya about troubles in his home and told her how he felt so scared and completely all alone. Freya sat and listened, and she let Wally talk on, and by the end of Wally's story, her anger was gone. I have a fun idea, she said with kindness in her smile, and together they gathered her book's pages in a pile. The next day, the kids gathered by the biggest old oak tree. What they found when they arrived was quite the sight to see. Wally's illustrations were all pinned up on the bark, scary drawings of mean monsters and terrible sharks. Freya told a story, and it made them come alive. The monsters were embarking on a dangerous deep-sea dive. When her epic story ended, everybody cheered. They saw Wally was an artist and not to be feared. From that day on, Wally was a member of the crew. The others wrote the stories, and as for Wally, he drew. You see, Freya did something quite special on that fateful day. Instead of striking back, she made sure Wally was okay. There is always much more to people than we can see. Beautiful things can happen when we practice empathy. Oh, I know, it's so good. That was a good story. I like that story. That last word, do we know what that word means? Empathy, Audrey? Being kind to others. Putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. And when somebody's being a bully, that can be tricky, but sometimes that is the key. When somebody's not being kind, sometimes that's the thing we have to do, is maybe put ourselves in their shoes and say, what's making you act this way? Is that something we might be able to practice out in the world this week, my friends? Let's do it. All right, let's sing our song together.
We are children of the stars, we are children of the earth, we are spinners and we this web of life, and the joy that we weave reaches out beyond the stars and deep within the center of our being. We are children of tomorrow, we are children of our dreams. We are planners and builders in this web of life, and the future that we weave reaches out beyond the stars and deep within the center of our being.
All right, let's head down to our classroom.
Our stewardship touches those within and reaches beyond these walls. The baskets that will be passed here in the sanctuary have two sides, one to help sustain our congregation and the other for community needs such as safe harbor and local food pantries. Other ways to give are listed on the screen. You can mail a check to the congregation. You can give on the UUCGT website. You can give through the Vanco mobile app, or you can make transfer arrangements with your bank. All gifts, large and small, are received with gratitude.
To be simple, 'tis the gift to be free. 'Tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, 'twill be in the valley of law and delight. 'Tis the gift of the humble, of the wise and the kind. 'Tis the gift of those who follow the divine. To bless and to be blessed by the simple faith. To live in the peace of amazing
Hello, everyone. We've now come to the time in our service where we share our joys and concerns. It is our practice as a religious community to set aside time in our service to name and honor the joys and concerns that mark our lives, the milestones and moments of our lived experiences. I will be sharing the joys and concerns that have been offered up for us to hold on our hearts today. If you have a joy or concern that it's a bit too heavy to share, I invite you to reach out to Reverend Alex or to the congregational care team. Soon you'll be able to look for our new purple badges on our name tags. I'm Ann Swaney, a member of the congregational care team, and if there's other members of the team today in this service, would you please raise your hands? Okay, way over there. Good. Okay, thank you, Jane. Thank you, Linda. If your joy and concern is still raw and tender, we invite you to hold it on your heart as you are held in this loving community, because none of us is meant to travel life's journey alone. And so now, this is what has been shared with this gathered community. How wonderful that 60 to 70 UUs with UU aprons on, excuse me, were at the demonstration yesterday to support democracy from Jim Herrick's. Thank you to all who showed up for the Hands Off rally yesterday. We were a force for love. Mary Van Valen, thank you for the banner, Mary. Great joy for all the good trouble yesterday. Sorry for the loss of Holly Bird, a true gentle warrior for justice, from Jan Zerbel. I felt very inspired and proud to be a part of the Grand Traverse community yesterday at Hands Off. Jessica Strawbridge? No. Jessica, sorry. Okay, thank you. And Holly, you are in our hearts. We miss you in a world that needs more voices as strong and loving as your inspirational life, from Heather Shoemaker. And there's one from me for June Thaden, who's probably watching us from home now with a newly broken wrist. And from Reverend Alex, many of you have already heard the sad news about Holly Bird, who made her journey home late on April 2nd and is now with the ancestors. We hold in our hearts her family and friends. Holly was a fierce advocate for justice, a protector of the earth and water, and a beloved presence in our wider community. She was battling stage 4 metastatic breast cancer with incredible strength and love. We especially lift up her husband Percy, her children Sonny, Will, and Annabella, and their wider family in this time of loss. Let us hold them in our hearts and prayers in the days ahead. And now let's hold a moment of silence for the concerns and joys that remain in the silence and on our hearts.
If you'd please join me in a moment of prayer. Spirit of life, divine breath that moves within and beyond us, in the season of remembering, we recall the journey from bondage to freedom, the cry for justice that rose from the dust of Egypt. We remember that liberation is not only a story of the past, it is a calling for us today. In a world where hearts are hardened by fear, by greed, by the false gods of power and control, we pray for softening. We pray for Pharaoh's heart to crack open, not just the pharaohs of old, but the pharaohs of now. Leaders who turn away from suffering, systems that silence the oppressed, policies that hurt the most vulnerable among us. Let us be willing to risk the miracle that comes from compassion, from justice, and from belief. May we listen for the voices that go unheard, the child who cannot speak, the one who has no place at the table, the people whose pain we would rather forget. Because when we listen and when we believe, even in the wilderness, and even with only a staff in hand and a sea before us, a protest sign and a plethora of obstacles in our way, there can be miracles. Not magic tricks, not escapes from hardship, but real miracles of solidarity, of liberation, and of the human spirit rising. May we be part of that miracle. And may we be the people who believe even when hope is fragile, even when faith feels like a whisper, even when the road ahead feels impossible. Because still, there can be miracles when we believe. Amen. Let's join in singing our song of response, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life a shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our reading this morning comes from the book of Exodus. In this excerpt, we hear of the plagues that befell Egypt and Pharaoh's hardening heart. As we hear this passage, I invite you to listen for the ways that Pharaoh's actions reflect a pattern of narcissism, his need for control, his refusal to admit fault, and repeated cycles of resistance and false repentance. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, in order that I may show these signs of mine among them." So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, let my people go so that they may worship me. But you have refused to listen. Therefore, these signs will come upon you." And the Lord turned the Nile to blood, so that the fish died and the river stank. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Then the Lord sent frogs that covered the land, swarms of gnats, and flies that filled the houses of the Egyptians. Each time Pharaoh begged for relief, but when the plague ended, he hardened his heart and would not let the Israelites go. So the Lord sent disease upon the livestock, boils upon the people, and hail that struck down crops and trees. Yet Pharaoh remained stubborn. Then came locusts, so numerous they covered the ground and devoured all that was left. Pharaoh said, I have sinned against the Lord your God, and begged Moses to pray. And so the Lord sent a wind that drove the locust into the sea. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. Then came darkness over the land for 3 days, yet Pharaoh's heart remained unyielding. Finally, the Lord struck down every firstborn in Egypt. Only then did Pharaoh call Moses and Aaron in the night and say, "Go, leave my people." So the Israelites set out, but Pharaoh changed his mind and pursued them with his army. As Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites cried out in fear, but Moses said, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again."
Well, friends, we've heard this story before. Maybe we first heard it told to us in Sunday school or even shared with us across the Passover table. The familiar story of an oppressed people's journey to liberation. The Exodus story is one of the most well-known liberation stories in our world today. And yet there's a dynamic within it that can so often be missed or go unexamined. This frustrating cycle between Pharaoh and Moses, this back and forth between oppressor and oppressed, between Pharaoh's hardened heart and Moses' continual pleas for Pharaoh to listen, to let his people go and to end their suffering. Reflecting on this particular dynamic, I'm curious if Pharaoh might also serve as a metaphor for something deeper that we might not readily find across scriptures and sacred texts. In today's world, we have a popularized notion of what we understand as narcissism and the clinical diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. These concepts offer us new lenses toward human relationships and particular behavior patterns. An inflated sense of one's importance, a need for constant admiration, a fragile self-esteem, and strained and wounded relationships. Could the Exodus story with Pharaoh and his hardened heart be an ancient case study in narcissism? Could this story be an attempt to describe what happens when the heart becomes closed off to everything but the self? And what might the Exodus story have to tell us about narcissistic personalities and these tendencies that we see in our world today, especially among particular leaders who follow this pattern? You probably see where I'm going already. How Pharaoh's hardened heart reveals to us the nature of narcissism, and how Moses responds to Pharaoh, how this teaches us about resistance, moral clarity, and the spiritual work of liberation itself. In exploring this topic, I want to be careful with what we mean when we use terms like narcissist and narcissism. Narcissism itself is both a psychological and a relational pattern that showcases an inflated sense of self-importance, a deep need for admiration, and a telltale lack of empathy for people and others. Narcissistic personality disorder is a medical diagnosis, beyond the ways that our culture refers to narcissism in the pop psychology sort of way. Narcissists often mask some deeper insecurities and underlying fragilities lying just underneath a grandiose surface. In our understandings of narcissism, a lack of empathy is one of the first things that we often think about. Yet there's a deeper truth found alongside narcissistic tendencies, that narcissism itself is a deep consuming concern for only one's self. With this lens of hardened hearts, the narcissist's heart is hardened towards others and turns exclusively inward. Their sole mission, to promote and preserve the self. To this end, other people are often seen as tools, threats, or even expendable to the person whose heart is hardened. Many of us either know or have known narcissistic personalities across our lives. Some of us have even been wounded in our relationships with narcissists, giving us an even greater awareness of how harmful these relationships can become. Likewise, we also see certain powers and leaders in our world today that lend themselves toward these traits. A current administration that laughs in the face of pleas for mercy and compassion for the most vulnerable among us. Leaders who refuse to be accountable and are even unable to admit fault when they've made mistakes or caused great harm. A president whose enlarged ego and consistent navel-gazing serves as a cause for division, not just here at home, but in the world at large. We're going there. This sermon is not to condemn narcissism in of itself, but to highlight certain tendencies and tensions with how harmful the hardening of our hearts can become. After today, I hope that you'll be more readily able to recognize it when you see it, and also know what you can do. How you can respond to Pharaoh when you're met with leaders and personalities that simply refuse to listen. My hope is that you'll be able to recognize and start to be able to see Pharaoh everywhere. That the Exodus story itself isn't a story to be left on the shelf, but a story to be read into our world and society today. So let's dive on in and first get more of a lens for what to look for after we've just reheard that Exodus story and the many plagues. With narcissistic personality disorder, there are 6 key pieces that come with recognizing it. And those key pieces are, number 1, self-centeredness, a persistent focus on the self over others. Number 2, a lack of empathy, a difficulty in recognizing or caring about other people's feelings or needs. Number 3, a need for control and admiration, being dominant in situations, being seen as superior or powerful. Number 4, a sense of entitlement, believing that one deserves special treatment or to be obeyed without question. Number 5, a resistance to accountability, a difficulty in admitting faults or wrongdoings, and usually shifting that blame elsewhere. And lastly, number 6, emotional defensiveness, reactivity with anger, denial, or manipulation when one is threatened. Now, before you start going around and diagnosing everyone in your life as a narcissist or Pharaoh, it's important to mention that all 6 of these keys come with a caveat. Not all self-focus is inherently narcissistic. Confidence and self-preservation at their core are not narcissism. Instead, narcissism exists on a spectrum from a person's healthy sense of ego development on one side all the way to narcissistic personality disorder as a formal diagnosis. Now, I am no clinician, so please understand and take all of these explorations with a grain of salt. With these 6 different keys to narcissism, we can start to see some of these traits show up in Pharaoh himself. How Pharaoh doesn't see his own cruelty after subjugating a people into years of brutality and enslavement. How he himself sees himself as the victim. How through denial, anger, and manipulation, he continues to ensnare Moses and his people into this manipulative back and forth cycle, eventually going back on his decision to even let them go. Let's look more closely at a few important parts in the story we just heard. Firstly, the different plagues and how Pharaoh continued to not listen. In our world today, we might seldom see frogs covering the land or swarms of gnats filling our homes. Perhaps we've never seen Lake Michigan completely turn red or fire and ice rain down from the heavens together. But even so, I'd argue that we're still seeing the same signs of devastation, just like those same plagues of old. Right now, our country is entering a time of economic plague, of trade wars between our allies and countries that are deemed our adversaries. how global supply chains are being disrupted, causing prices to rise on all of us. How this administration seems to be doubling down rather than listening in and letting up to the pain and harm being caused. This economic devastation might speak to us just like the plagues of hail and locusts that devastated crops and the livelihoods of people. And yet Pharaoh's heart is hard, and he will not listen. Let's also take a look at the destruction of our trust in institutions and of our federal workforce, how career civil servants are being vilified or seen as enemies to the state, or even enemies to the good of the nation. How many institutions and roles that have largely been nonpartisan are over time being replaced by people who are deemed loyal enough to the administration. How the current administration has even purposefully withheld vital funds to control what they deem as necessary or expendable. This too might remind us of the plague of disease and boils, how these wounds to our government workforce will be felt generationally and will be really hard to heal. And yet Pharaoh's heart is hard. He will not listen. Let's look to international tensions and our growing isolationism. How our withdrawals from international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and the World Health Organization are forcing us to stand all on our own. How traditional alliances and the many allies we've had in other countries are now becoming questionable. And how authoritarian regimes around the world are even becoming emboldened by this weakening of our international relationships. How we even welcomed the president of a foreign nation that is fighting off a war and an invasion into the Oval Office only to tell him that he's not being grateful enough for all that we've done for him. Let that sink in for a moment. This might remind us of the plague of darkness and confusion spreading over the land, a growing moral uncertainty and fog that keeps us from knowing what's next. And yet, this is where you get to come in. Pharaoh's heart is with feeling, and he will not listen. You know the story. Are you starting to see the parallels with this story and some of our leaders today? This is a story for our times right now. With all this talk of current events, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and like it's hard to know what we can do to stop it. How do we stop Pharaoh? What tendencies that we see growing stronger in our world today, what can we do to stop them? Now, I know not many of us have the power to unleash plagues, though I encourage any of you that are really up to the task to keep trying at it, if that's your passion. Perhaps the plagues that we're already seeing are warning signs enough that we are in a challenging and dangerous place as a nation. Even so, I want to offer you some hope. Hope that I'm carrying with me following yesterday's hands-off protest at the government center. How many of us actually went to yesterday's protest? It was an amazing turnout of UUers, as you've already heard. There were lots of us there, and I think the record is now up at over 4,000 people there yesterday. Pretty remarkable. You should have seen us Friday night here at the church with tables and chairs all sprawled out, people steady at work on their signs and slogans. What gave me hope was that feeling of community that came from Friday night's gathering beforehand. More than 50 of us coming together, breaking bread, or I should say pizza and salad, and bonding together over our shared values and the world we want to see. To me, it truly felt like a communion of sorts, a communion of hearts and minds coming together to say, this is wrong, to say, we know how to be with each other. Community is and will always be one of the most important and ancient technologies in defeating narcissism. Narcissism itself isolates and pulls people into orbit around a powerful figure, making us to feel alone and without power. But real power itself comes from community, through our mutual acts of support and our communal care. So the first way that we're going to stop Pharaoh is in showing up for one another and to create circles of love and accountability. That's our first way of beating Pharaoh in this country. The second way is the necessity of playing the part of Moses, of continuing to speak the truth even when it's hard and even when we might face danger. Narcissistic power thrives on denial and distraction, opting to distort things so that people can't quite catch on. We need to be like Moses as he faces Pharaoh again and again, speaking up for our values and naming what is wrong, even when it feels like no one is listening. The important thing is that we don't grow weary of telling the truth. Within your families, communities, and even online spaces, don't grow weary of truth-telling. Even Pharaoh tried explaining away the plagues and through these different charades by his cabinet, court magicians. Sorry, I'm just having fun up here now. We resist Pharaoh by telling the truth. That's the second way that we're going to beat Pharaoh. Now, lastly, we can also resist Pharaoh by examining our own hearts, by resisting the temptation to center ourselves and to cling to control or avoid accountability. All of us need to remember that there's a bit of Pharaoh within each of us. And all of us have the propensity at times to harden our hearts and to refuse to listen to one another. Resisting Pharaoh also becomes resisting the tendency to mirror Pharaoh within ourselves. Notice where your heart is growing hard and allow your heart to be broken open. Pharaoh can only see himself. If we are to be different from the pharaohs and empires of old, of our past and present, we're going to need to root ourselves in a larger story. A story of us and we. A story that remembers those who cannot speak and celebrates them as a central part of the story itself. A story that tells us of our connectedness to one another, not of our individualism and our isolation. To close, I invite you to remember the power that you hold, even in this time when you might feel powerless. With this great sea before us, we might at times feel like we have an impossible task ahead. But remember, there can be miracles, real live human miracles in our midst, when enough of us rise up together and refuse to play Pharaoh's game. Collective liberation will not come about from our passive acceptance, nor will it come from our obedience of what we know to be wrong. Instead, we must be like Moses, like Aaron and Miriam, and all those who faithfully resist a narcissistic empire. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Remember your role in stopping Pharaoh in his tracks. Who knows what miracles we can achieve when we believe enough in the power of we. Let's go make Pharaoh listen. Amen? Amen. Let's join in a brief moment of stillness together. I just have a few announcements for us today. I want to mention that don't forget that there's a concert coming up this Saturday, April 12th at 7 p.m. The Von Quarters have gifted us with Emma's Revolution, that concert that is coming up, from which all of the ticket sales will be split between Northern Michigan E3 and our own social justice action team. They are a really gifted activist musician team. Pat was actually a mentee and close friend of Pete Seeger's. They've been involved in justice work and UUism and far beyond. And I hear one of their songs was in response to Bishop Buddy's direct ask of our president to have mercy. Holly T. Bird was also a founding member of E3, and so this is one of the many ways we might honor her as we move in our grief. Reverend Wendy reports that Holly was pleased to hear about the success of our Show Up Summit, in particular to learn that it resulted in lots of action groups. So let's honor Holly and make sure to get your tickets for the concert. In remembering Holly's life and in keeping with her Indigenous tradition, a sacred fire began on Thursday evening at Holly's home on Cedar Run Road, burning for 4 days throughout the day and night. Contributions of food for the family, firekeepers, and gathered community are welcome, but they are not required. Your presence to be with the family during the day and Holly's spirit during the night is most welcome. So you're invited to visit her sacred fire. I was able to go Friday evening, and it was a very meaningful space to be. So if you're interested in volunteering with our new SEED programs, Spiritual Ethical Exploration and Development, go and see our Director of SEED, Chelsea Bentley, at the table in the social hall after the service if you're interested in getting involved in volunteering. Social Justice Action is meeting today, the focus group to support LGBTQ+ and vulnerable youth after the service here in the sanctuary at noon. So go see Catherine for more information if you're curious about joining that. And lastly, we have this Transforming Hearts weekly series coming up again. This is a really wonderful module that is created by trans UU ministers about radical welcome and widening our sense of welcome as a congregation, even beyond sexuality and gender. And there's a new Responding to the Anti-Trans Movement module that they've developed. So any of you that have done this before, there's some new stuff for you to tap into today with that. These groups will be starting up April 22nd every week. That'll be Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Here in the sanctuary. We'll also have it available online via Zoom for any of you that would like to participate. There's a sign up at the welcome table right back there where Chris is. So feel free to sign up if you're interested in taking Transforming Hearts. And now let's sing together.
Singing hymn number 116, I'm on my way. Now this is a fun call and response song. So if you have a lower voice, I welcome you to be the responder. And if you have a higher voice, I welcome you to be more of the caller with me. All right?
I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land.
and join hands with your neighbor, or we also have this sign of please do not touch me if you're someone that doesn't want to be touched. We welcome this as well. Those of you joining us online are also welcome to outstretch your hands and join us here in this room. And Beth will share some quick words, and then we'll get out of here.
In our hungering for meaning, in our aching for friendship, in our yearning for justice, as this flame is released, may we look deep within the mystery of life, gather our strength, and live in hope.
And in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, in the spirit of traversing this wilderness and the broad place before us, may we be made ready to serve one another and create the world we so desperately dream of. Go in peace. Happy Sunday. Pass a little air five or a hand squeeze. See you later.